Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Empire State of Baseball. This is a Tuesday edition of the ESB podcast, April 25th of the year 2023, episode number 43. Again, we are airing exclusively on Twitch and powered by StreamYard. Well, gentlemen, we're back. Another Tuesday show for us. We've done a few Tuesday shows during our podcast reign here. How's everyone doing on this fine Tuesday?
Doing good, hanging in there. Riled up a couple of interesting fan bases on Twitter this week, so that was fun.
Sure, just about the second time we've riled up a fan base on our social media. So looking forward to reviewing some of the damage that Joe has done over the weekend, and losing another team to the show's viewership rather. Tom, what's going on, man?
Listen, just coming off the high of the Devils tying the Rangers, and this is Empire State of Baseball. But listen, Empire State of Hockey right now. It's Hudson River rivalry. I was saying before the show, the Rangers kind of stole my heart the first two games, and I was ready to give up. But now I'm back in, and I'm ready to be hurt. I'm all in. And it's fun.
It actually works out too that it's an even 2-2 split between the four of us. Although ironically, it would be Joe and Tom tag teaming that particular audience, but it would be an even split.
Be a real Undertaker Kane, like little Brothers of Destruction there. If that tag team came together, nothing would stay in our way.
Yeah, Joe, those are professional wrestlers, legendary professional wrestlers. Just in case,
never heard of
the reference. All right, so Undertaker and Kane here, but that's actually probably one thing I hate that Joe and Tom both agree on. Devils beating the Rangers yesterday, and the reason for our postponement to today. So we were better off doing a show. But anyway, we do have a show for tonight, Corey Favs, and what is on our lineup card for tonight's podcast?
We have a pretty good lineup here for this evening. We're going to start off first with the Queen's Gambit. We'll get a little bit into the Max Scherzer suspension. I know we had a lot of fun on Twitter on that a little earlier in the week, or I should say last week, We're going to jump into the Fantasy Hot Corner featuring John Hernandez, one of our many good chooches in the chat who does a segment with us every now and then with the Fantasy Hot Corner. We're then going to go to the state of baseball, specifically with the Oakland A's, and talk about their move out of Oakland to Vegas, which was just announced this past weekend. Then speaking of stadiums, we're going to run through our list of stadiums. So top of the order segment will be debuting tonight on this particular show, where we'll get into a little bit of stadium talk. And then finally be wrapping up with another fun segment, a player to be named later, where Joe and Tom will be presenting our group here with a fun question. So looking forward to that as we get into it. But first, as I said, we'll start off with the Queen's Gambit, the latest on the New York Metropolitans, looking at the road trip. I know for those of you who saw the ESB Men's Minute before, Mets had a very successful road trip, finishing 7-3 overall. They ended up sweeping the A's last weekend, took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers, split the 4-game set with the Giants 2-2. Again, a 10-game set on the West Coast. You usually say to yourself 5-5 or better is the goal. So 7-3, I will gladly take it. They did have a chance maybe in Sunday's game to beat the Giants there. The Saturday game was for the most part a no contest. The Giants came out really early, put up a ton of runs. But either way, 7-3. Joe, how you feeling coming out of this West Coast trip?
Yeah, I mean, that's as good as a West Coast trip as you can get. You will like to have taken that last game in San Francisco. The Mets had a shot at getting sole possession of the lead in the NL East going into this week. Feels a little bit like a missed opportunity with the last one. But listen, anytime you go out and face the Dodgers in San Francisco and you turn around, you win 4 out of 7 against those two teams, you're going to take it and you're going to run home. Obviously, Oakland, you expect to pretty much sweep almost every single time. They're a pitiful, pitiful team right now, although the Angels just lost to them yesterday. So that's kind of a fun shows you how bad the Angels are at times. But no, that was a great road trip. You need to be happy as a Met fan. The biggest concern right now with the Mets is the pitching. I mean, between Scherzer being suspended, Verlander still working his way back, Quintana on the IL, Carrasco on the IL. The Mets' depth at starting pitching is really being tested. We're going to be good by the middle of next week, but this is going to be an interesting week for the Mets pitching staff because their big guys are all out right now.
Yeah, it's a tough stretch for sure. And listen, despite all of these starting pitching woes, the Mets still finished 7-3 in their last 10 games. And like you said, Joe, by this time next week, things are going to be looking better. The Scherzer will be back, you figure, by next weekend. Verlander, I believe they announced, don't quote me on the exact date, but I believe they announced May 3rd is going to be his expected debut. So we're looking at a late next week start.
Has he thrown a
his
game in the minors yet?
He did throw 3 innings in a rehab start. He will start Friday in a rehab, and then he is scheduled at this moment to make his next start after that. So we are looking at May 3rd or 4th.
Yep.
As Verlander's debut with the Mets.
So the
you would think it'd probably be a shorter outing, because he's just he didn't have a much of a spring training. So
5-6 innings, but at this point, you know what? It's better than Jose Buto, who's pitching right now.
Yeah.
And kind of walking the tightrope at the moment with the Nationals have a 2-0 lead with the bases loaded at the moment. So you're going to take him back if he comes, even if it's only a 5-inning start for his first one.
Let's talk Max Scherzer, because although the biggest story on the West Coast was Corey Favs running through California stadiums like nothing, Max Scherzer getting suspended for 10 games of the sticky substance policy. We got to talk about it. I know it's kind of dated since it happened over a week ago, but we got to cover it here. What do you guys think? We'll start here. I actually want to start here with the contrarian in the room, Mr. Tom Wospil. Tom, what are your thoughts on Scherzer and this suspension?
Listen, he broke the rules. I would say he knowingly did it. Do I think Max Scherzer is a cheater, and do I think Max Scherzer's legacy should be tarnished? No, but he had a very similar situation. I saw a lot of Mets fans saying like, "Oh, Domingo Germán got away with it, and not Scherzer, and MLB just hates the Mets," which is ridiculous. You don't think MLB would love to see the Mets in the World Series against the Yankees or against a team like another big market team? It's silly to think that. He has the story about washing his hands off with the alcohol. Do you really guys think that Max Scherzer, who has been a professional baseball pitcher for over half of his life, does not know that alcohol mixed with rosin makes it sticky? Do you think he doesn't? Do you think he did not know that?
I'm sure he knew that, but that at MLB officials that is part of the process. When you are told to go wash your hands, you are supposed to use rubbing alcohol to get any dirt and grime off your hands. Soap and water won't do that, and it'll just make your hands slick. But David Cohn had a great display of this on Sunday Night Baseball the other night. For those who don't understand, David Cohn did it live in the booth and showed the ball literally sticking to his finger just because he put rosin on it, which is sticky in of itself, and then used rubbing alcohol to wash his hands under the watchful eye of an MLB official, came out the next inning, and his hand was stickier because the alcohol reacts with the rosin. So
I just don't see Scherzer as a guy who is a very outspoken, a very passionate guy. You saw how he argued being kind of thrown out of the game. If he was being told to, hey, you have to use this to clean your hand, for him, it seemed odd to me. Again, I don't think Max Scherzer is this lifelong cheater, and he's finally gotten caught, and good they got him. But if he knew that was going to happen, he should have said something and said, "Listen, I'm not going to do that. Like I have to use something else. I have, there has to be like a different way of going about it," because he knew that was going to happen. So, by that definition, he should have been suspended. He should have.
I think this comes down to the fact that now we've reached MLB has worked to refine these rules over the past few years due to the fact that they've cracked down on this kind of stuff. And now what we've gotten into is a very odd gray area where a legal substance in rosin is now being regulated because whether you have too much rosin on your hands or whatever it is, it mixes with the sweat, it discolors. So we're at the point now where the only legal substance you're allowed to use is now being regulated in an arbitrary way by the umpire. And clearly Phil Cuzzy's crew is ultra sensitive to this, since he has been involved in the last 3 incidents. And their regulation to wash your hands with alcohol is actually compounding the problem. So I think we've actually come to a point where MLB has made a mess of this through ambiguity, and we're kind of at the point where it's moving goalposts. I don't think Scherzer's using spider tack in the lab. I don't think that's him.
I really was waiting for someone in the chat to be Max Scherzer's spider tack. I know we've had Garrett Cole's spider tack. I was just kind of waiting to see if Max Scherzer's spider tack would join us, but maybe he'll be joining us later.
Yeah.
Hopefully
and we'll see what happens too. My biggest thing with the Scherzer news, and unfortunately I didn't get to see that live. That was when I was on the road off to San Francisco, so did have the game on the Sirius XM app on my phone. So I did get to hear it live as it happens, but didn't get to see it. I thought, Tom, you brought up a good point. It's not like Scherzer's deliberately a cheater here. There's a big difference between using a little extra rosin and the stickiness of that rosin versus taking steroids and purposely juicing up, to clearly cheat. So there's a little bit of a difference there.
There is a limit to how much rosin you're allowed to use, though. That is what kind of kicked this off. It's what kicked off what happened with Domingo Germán. They said he had too much rosin on his hands. And listen, Germán got it off in some way that it didn't cause his hands to be stickier than any other hands that they felt before. I don't know if he's ever commented again on that. And listen, I don't want to use him as a good resource because I think we all know that I think he's a piece of trash. But like it was the same exact thing happened with him, and they figured it out, and he was able to get his hands clean, and the umps were happy with it. So I'm very curious to see what he did differently than Scherzer, because I don't think
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in because if the umpires have any kind of suspicion on these players using substances, why is there a warning? Why aren't they just throwing out players? I don't understand 3 strikes you're out policy. If they were suspecting Germán of using something and they didn't like what they saw, he should have been thrown out. And honestly,
they knew what he was. They knew what he was using something. He should have been thrown out. They knew what they were both using. I can honestly get behind that if like MLB just kind of starts being able to crack down. The problem is, how do you define how much? Because rosin's legal. How do you define what is too much rosin? Are they going to say, like, if you have a 1/4 inch, and then they're going to come up with like rules? There's no way to really define it. It's that's why I think the umps have to say, listen, this is too much. Like, I'm saying this is too much. You have to clean your hands off. And if there has to be a different way of getting it off because the alcohol mixed with the rosin becomes, compounds the problem, then MLB has to come up with a different solution to get it off of them. But there is a limit to how much you could put on.
Well, that's my problem. The rosin is legal, but too much rosin. I mean, what's the legal? You're leaving the legality of it up to ambiguity, and that to me,
I don't think there's a way to define it, though. How would you say? How do you define?
That's the problem. That's a big problem in a game that is defined by its measurables, in a game that is defined by ultra precise distances, by miles per hour, and all that stuff. We are leaving an interpretive measure or interpretive amount up to the umpires to say this is too much, this isn't. Now, here's the other part of this. A lot of pitchers, what they've been doing is they apply rosin in the dugout, they go out to the mound, they don't touch the rosin bag. Listen, if MLB wants to make a rule and say the only place you're allowed to apply rosin is while you're on the mound, that's going to bring its own issues with the pitch clock.
Yeah,
but that's part of the problem. Just like I don't agree with having shift cards in your hat and the technology and the tablets in the dugout. I believe that once you step into the lines of the field, it should be the players and nothing else. Make rosin being applied on the mound as part of that. Then the umpires can see how much you're applying. They could say, whoa, you just put the whole bag on you. You got to, slow your roll. But if they're applying it in the dugout, they're coming out, the umpires are interpreting how much is too much. I don't, it's too subjective to the umpire's discretion for me that we have to work at a better way to define it.
Yeah,
I
And
understand
it would
we need
still
to crack down.
still be subjective if it was on the mound though, because the ump would say, "Oh, I've seen you do 6 pats of the rosin on your hand. That is too much." I think that there really isn't a way. I think that unfortunately, if you're going to limit how much they can use, the umps have to have some kind of discretion of saying which is too much, and that's why, to like Rich's point, I don't think you can just toss guys for having too much because they have to be told, they have to know what that limit is, and they have to have the ability to clean off. They've seen a better way of doing it.
The other problem I want to bring up about this is, and I'll let Rich and Corey get in after this. This game took place in LA on a hot, humid night versus, Herman, who was in New York in the Northeast in a little bit of a cooler climate. Scherzer's sweating a bit more. That's probably reacting to the rosin a little bit more. Part of the reason that you have rosin is because different environments and different night give you a different grip on the ball. So, I mean, something that might be too much in LA might not even be needed up in the Northeast, like Boston, for an example, in the middle of April. So I think that's part of it too. It's a really, I know what MLB is trying to do, but we have to find some other way. And whether it's a new baseball or a more stringent substance that is more regulatable, we got to figure it out.
I want to get into the Atlanta Braves preview. Corey, did you have any final points on the Scherzer suspension?
No, I think I think everything that was said here is fair. The only other thing I would bring up is, since it's hard to regulate rosin, whereas you take a drug test, you pee in a cup, you get your results, and you can clearly tell if you're taking steroids or not. The only other thing I could think of is if they look into possibly what Japan does. I know their baseball is naturally more sticky than the American baseball. Again, just something to consider. I don't know what the perfect outcome is here. But at the end of the day, the rule's the rule. I have no issues with the 10-game suspension. It is what it is. It doesn't tarnish Scherzer's legacy by any means. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Bad timing for the Mets, but at least he'll be back next week.
Yeah, I think all those points are great. It's still going to be a debate for this season to come. I'm sure there's going to be another incident sooner than later that we're going to see on the Major League Baseball diamond of how much is too much, how sticky is too sticky, and we'll have this conversation once again. But until then, I want to talk about the Atlanta Braves set coming up this weekend.
Yep.
Huge series for the Mets. The probables have not been lined up yet for this 3-game set, but real quickly, we'll go around the room here. Joe, what do you got in this series, Braves-Mets, coming up?
Yeah, this is going to be a good series. This is really the first big measuring stick for the Mets. I know they just played the Dodgers and San Francisco out there. I don't think San Francisco is going to be hanging around long in that division. So this is the big series for the Mets this weekend. It looks like Scherzer will be back for one of those games, probably the last game of the series. I got to check the rotation, but this is going to be critical. The Mets need to come away 2 out of 3 with this series. 4 games. Is it 4 games or
4 games? Let's not make this mistake again, boys.
4 games. I blame Rich on the script.
They play a Monday to end the series.
They have a Monday to end the series.
That is what it says.
The Mets need to get at least split with the Braves here. Especially now with the balanced schedule, the reduced games in the division. These division games and with division rivals who are going to be atop the division are going to be even more critical. We saw last year the division came down to a tiebreaker between the two teams. You can't let that happen again. You must win the season series, and the Mets would do well to establish that early this year with a win this weekend.
Correct. I agree exactly what Joe said. At minimum here, go 2-2 out of the 4-game set, and you have to win the National Series. So if you come out of this, you got 7 games. You take 2 from the Nats, you take 2, minimum 4 wins this week, and I'll be happy. Ideally, listen, you want to win the series for sure, add up the games early, but it's still April, all right? And we've seen it with the past where the Mets look back at 2021 when the Mets were in first place in July, and what ended up happening, the team completely fell apart. At the same time, the Braves, well under 500, got hot at the right time, won the World Series. Phillies last year, under 500 in April, fired Joe Girardi, and went to the World Series but didn't win it. It's a little too early to worry about playoffs and standings just yet. Just keep the pace, split the series, keep things interesting. But give me 4 wins this week, and I'll be happy.
I try to defend the Metsies as much as I possibly can on the show, but I'm going Braves 3-1 on this one. I think the Braves pitching is just too damn good. They're 4th best in ERA across baseball right now. You're looking at potentially, I know Kyle Wright's supposed to be going. I don't think Kyle Wright's going in this series, so you're going to be looking at the 4 best statistical pitchers of the Braves got in Elder, Strider, and the other 2 that I can't remember right now. But I got Braves 3-1. I'm sorry. Fried. Yeah, Fried's good. He's good. He's solid.
Is Morton? Is it Morton?
Is Morton even healthy? Like, what's his deal? They have so much pitching is ridiculous. Tom, what do you
got? If Scherzer pitches in the series, I'll give the Mets a split. If Scherzer is not back for it, I'll ride with Rich and I'll say 3-1 Braves. The Braves are, again, that pitching is pretty untouchable right now.
Listen, and Scherzer comes back. Scherzer off a 10-day rest, basically, with the suspension. I don't want to hear any excuse from Scherzer. I want 7 innings of shutdown baseball. The last time he saw the Braves, he got shelled out of the building. Okay? You just got suspended. You just served a 10-game suspension. Come back, shut the Braves down. Lock up a W for the Mets and give your team a chance. All right? I don't want to hear it from Scherzer. You come off a 10-day suspension fresh as a daisy, and you give up bombs left and right like you did last year in September. Let me tell you something. The Boo Birds are going to be out. And as they should be. You're getting paid $43 million. I want shutdown pitching against the Braves coming off 10 days of rest.
Listen, let's hope he comes up big here. And first, let's hope he comes back for the series. I think, like Joe said, he'll be in line just for the end of it. So hopefully he squeezes a game in there. The other thing that's unfortunate, too, and it's just how the schedule works, 4-game set, we do not get to see Senga versus the Braves. Senga pitches the last game of this national series. And then he'll pitch the first game after the Braves series. Unless one of these Nats games gets rained out, you never know. The weather, I don't think, is going to be bad earlier in the week, and we know it's going to be a rain out. So they might not even get 4 games in this week.
It's supposed to be a pretty crappy weekend, isn't it?
It is.
It's too early to be pushing guys back, and especially with the Mets not having enough starters as it is. But in a normal week, I would have pushed Senga back 1 game for the Braves and spot started somebody up here for the last game against the Nationals.
Yeah.
That's just me.
And
but
it
it's too early to play with that. The
Correct.
weather's poor the rest of the week, so who knows if we're actually going to get all these games in, and the Mets can't play around with their rotation.
Correct. Last thing you want to do is push Senga
Anybody
back.
want that dome conversation? Anybody want to have the dome conversation again? Joe, how can
We
everybody
haven't rain out this year for the Mets. I can't complain.
Joe,
you can't complain.
Everybody was talking at the same time. But Joe, how can everybody follow us and view us on Twitch?
All right, you can download Twitch and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball. The link is in our link tree, which is both on Instagram and Twitter bios. You can turn around and download that on your smartphone. You'll get notified every time we go live, and you can listen in right from your phone or computer at will.
Damn straight, at will. We don't force you to do it, but we want you to do it. So make sure if you're on Twitch tonight and there's some good viewership, a lot of participation in our chat, blast that Twitch link out to your friends as well so they can join us for tonight's show and join us for our next segment because Jonathan Hernandez, who's unfortunately not on with us live, but he does have tonight's Fantasy Hot Corner. So once again, we're going to take a listen to John and his picks for the fantasy pickup, and I think he starts off with the player spotlight. So here's this player spotlight from Jonathan Hernandez. Oh, hold on a second. We just messed up here. Let's try that again. Jonathan Hernandez with the fantasy pickup. No, sorry, the spotlight of the week. Here it is.
Jump right into fantasy hot corner this week. Fantasy spotlight player. Usually I try to switch it up and do a Met and Yankee, but the Yankee offense is, let's be honest, just not been good the last couple weeks. So we're going to go back to Queens. Let's talk about Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo's hitting 350. He's got 3 home runs, 12 RBIs. He's been on an absolute tear during the Mets 7-3 West Coast trip. He's got his OBP over 400, which is normal for him. And him and Alonso have basically been carrying the entire Mets offense. Let's see if he can keep it up over the next couple of weeks. But the Mets have been very happy with the return they've gotten from the contract that they signed into over the offseason.
So Jonathan goes with the New York Met, Thomas. Brandon Nimmo is the pick, 350 average, as he mentioned, 2 homers, 13
John
RBIs.
picked a Met? Oh, my God. I can't believe it. John, have you heard of Garrett Cole, by the way? Been pretty good this year. Why wasn't he your fantasy spotlight? Pitchers are people too. Pitchers can be spotlights. You used a pitcher to spotlight last week when you chose, or 3 weeks ago you chose a Met. It's just like, come on, man. What are we doing? Like, Brandon Nimble's been great. Honestly, he's on one of my fantasy teams. Been really great. Been very happy with him. We've talked about Brandon Nimble a lot on the show. But how about we not always just pick Mets? We talk about the Mets a lot on this show. So maybe let's diversify.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Brandon Nimmo, I mean, he has been absolutely red hot. I mean, there's no denying it right now. I mean, 350 batting average. And I mentioned on the ESPN Mets Minute before, the last 2 weeks, his OPS is over 1.1. I mean, he's hitting phenomenal right now. The only thing that's a little unfortunate with Nimmo, depending on what type of league you're in, some leagues actually do have left field, right field, center field. That would give you a ton of value where you could slot Nimmo in the center field spot. Most leagues just default to outfield. Both of mine do that as well. The only thing with Nimmo, depending on if you're in a stats league versus a points league, he doesn't typically hit for a lot of power. I know he did have a home run this last weekend versus the Giants. Hitting in the leadoff spot, maybe not the most RBI situations, but listen, if you're hitting an OPS that high of on-base percentage, it's one of your stats. Hits are going to be a stat for sure. Runs are going to be a stat for sure. You're going to get those points.
I have him in a categories league, and he is very valuable because of his average and his on-base and his runs, and he does throw in a couple steals, so he is helpful. John, again, you can't go pitcher spotlight and pick up. Like, was there there's no other batter that's worthy of a pickup? I'm just curious. Also, like, you could have literally just chosen anyone else. Come on.
Well, he goes Brandon Nimmo here with the Met. Sorry, Joe, you got a point. I was cutting you off.
Listen, Nimmo's been off to a great start, and not only on the offensive side, this doesn't help with fantasy, but his defense has been absolutely unbelievable. He made 4 diving catches that were the differences in games this past week. He's been unbelievable. He's turned into a heck of a player. And right now he's looking like he's worth every dime in the contract that the Mets gave him so far. So I think he leads the league in WAR at the moment. So
I hear, John, the next fantasy spotlight is going to be the Mets bat boy, just by how efficient he gets the bats out. He really does a good job of laying out.
Why did we
get on John?
We did have a segment on the Yankees bat boy last week or 2 weeks ago.
We did.
Yeah, so I think it's only right. And listen, I'm sure the Mets bat boy is doing a fantastic job and does deserve a call out. So, John, for the next call out, I would say Mets bat boy, guy who sells beer in the 300 level, could be a spotlight for you. Just I want to give you some ideas.
Well, right, Tom, luckily for you, we got a second part of this segment, and guess what? We're gonna find out John's next pick, and he's still local.
The guy who parks your cars by the chop shops.
The fantasy hot corner continues.
Pick him up.
For the fantasy pickup of the week, I'm going with 2 pitchers. Apparently, I'm a curse, and Logan O'Hoppe, who was my last pickup, tore his labrum. He's out for the year, most likely. So let's see how this one goes. I'm going with Joey Lucchesi of the New York Mets and Vince Velasquez of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yes.
Both of them coming off from really strong outings. Lucchesi looked like he hadn't missed a beat. 7 innings pitched against the Giants over the weekend. Velasquez pitched on Sunday. 7 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts. 2 really good starts. They both play the Nationals this week, so fingers crossed that they can keep going, or we'll see if the Hernandez curse just keeps on rolling. We'll see back in about 2 weeks.
There you go. He changed it up. He put Vince Velasquez in there, but also a nice call out to another New York Met, Joey Lucchesi. Yeah. After 1 start, he gets the pickup of the week, shared co-honors with Vince Velasquez. We got a Pirate, though, Tom. I know you want to talk about Vince Velasquez.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he has been good. I was looking at him before the show because I do like to take ideas for my own fantasy teams here, and he's someone owned, not in a ton of leagues, and is addable. So good call there. And again, Joe Lucchesi, I agree, could be a good pickup, but like, John, there are other teams out there, man. There are other teams. Just wanted to make you aware.
I will say Lucchesi is a good pickup for a spot start. These 2 are good pickups. You can't really pick Brandon Nimmo up.
We talk Mets and Yankees for an hour every week.
No,
I will say
we could talk about other people.
He is true to his word, John, because I did go to add Lucchese in our ESPN league, and John already had him. So, John, at least is true to his word. I'll give you that, John. I do like Lucchese. Welcome back. And right now, Vince Velasquez, too, with the Pirates. How about those Pirates? They're definitely overperforming this season. Granted, again, still April, very early. A lot of things could happen, but Vince Velasquez, interesting play. Pirates overall, and the biggest news from the Pittsburgh Pirates, do want to give it a quick mention, is the Brian Reynolds extension with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So that's a name that we mentioned numerous times, both in the offseason and last year at one of our favorite episodes, which was the trading deadline episode, because there was a very hot topic that Rich proposed, a hot trade, I should say, where the Yankees should go out and look to get Brian Reynolds. So Brian Reynolds will be staying in Pittsburgh, along with the fantasy hot corner hot pickup of the week, Vince Velasquez.
And so Pittsburgh's called for Rich's head.
Oh God, Joe, why do you always talk over me? What the hell? Like, fuck, like
I was just saying, Pittsburgh's no longer coming for your head, Rich.
All right. Yes, yeah.
They're coming for mine later,
organization. The Pirates were the first organization I pissed off. I can't wait to talk about the next one that we pissed off on the show.
See, if we talk like that more, Joe wouldn't have any room to talk. Let's try it more often.
Oh boy!
Before I wake up the neighbors, Tom, YouTube.
YouTube is a great app. There's a lot of fun things on there, but it's also a great place where you can watch replays and clips from our shows. We also have recently started to upload shorts, a lot of our Mets minutes and our Rivera rewinds and just other short thoughts that we come up with are going to be added to our YouTube channel. So again, if you're not watching us live, you definitely can check us out there. Make sure when you find our page, like, share, and subscribe.
And you can check out those YouTube videos of all those episodes if you just want to hear what my voice sounds like, because I know tonight you haven't really heard it. So. All right. Let's move on to our next bit, which is top of the order, which is a segment that I did on another previous MLB podcast I don't really talk about. But top of the order is here now on Empire State of Baseball. And what top of the order is, we're going to list out three of our favorites in Major League Baseball. And we're going to start off with MLB parks and stadiums. And obviously, we were happy to have Corey back on the show. He was on the West Coast swing. And Corey, you didn't really have the floor to talk about the West Coast swing. It's that much on tonight's show. I know you had it in the reel today on Instagram, but real quick wrap up. What was your thoughts on some of those West Coast ballparks?
I'll tell you what, it was a great trip, a very fun drive. We started off in San Diego, flew down from Newark to San Diego. So started off with Petco Park, made the drive up to Anaheim. It's about an hour 45, 2-hour drive up from San Diego. While we didn't get to see an Anaheim Angels game, or I should say LA Angels game, they did have the stadium tour. So we were for about 90 minutes. Great tour. The tour guide was absolutely awesome. He also said if the Angels do not make the postseason, he expects the Mets to sign Ohtani. So that'll be a hot topic over the course of this season and the offseason for sure. After that, made the drive up to LA, a very quick drive from Anaheim to Los Angeles to see Dodger Stadium. Very cool giveaway. I don't have it in the room at the moment, but I will show it at some point in time. Vin Scully replica jersey, and on one of the sleeves, it has the radio patch. And instead of a number under Scully, it also has a big radio logo there. So really cool jersey. I might actually look to frame it at some point, even though it's a cheaper material. Might look to frame it just because of the name and what he meant to baseball. Really cool giveaway. And then eventually made the drive up to San Francisco to see my personal favorite of these four parks. Did not get to see the Coliseum. I know there was a lot of heated discussion about the Coliseum. While I was in California, they announced they will be moving from Oakland to Vegas. So if I do want to knock it off my list, I'm going to have to go within the next couple of years and get that one over with. But not only were the A's not in town while I was there, because we started in San Diego, not Oakland, they also were the only stadium, when I was looking at all the lists, they're not doing stadium tours. I mean, I wonder why, because they also have possums in their TV booth. So I don't think they want to have fans doing a stadium tour running into an opossum. So it's a shame. I really wanted to see it, even though it's probably going to be the last of the parks on my list. But overall, great trip. I highly recommend it. The only true West Coast park I didn't get to go to was in Seattle, but that'll be a trip of its own one day. Really cool experience. And I definitely recommend it to the group.
Now, that said, and I'm happy you shared that. And one of those stadiums that you mentioned is in your top 3 of your favorite baseball stadiums. So keeping it going here, Corey. Let's look at your top 3 baseball parks of all time.
Yeah, I'm going to go right there with the bottom right, number 3, Oracle Park. It was my favorite on the West Coast. Really awesome stadium. As soon as I walked in there, I said to myself, yeah, this is going to be near the top of my list. Awesome views with McCovey Cove. You could do a 360 around the outside of the ballpark, walk next to the water, then cut up back and around. Picture in the bottom right, you're getting the whole view of the whole stadium. I mean, it's really a great ballpark. When you're walking behind that scoreboard into the concourse, a really cool area, a lot of little vendors and bars and whatnot back there. So overall, number 3, Oracle Park, awesome stadium, highly recommend it. And I love also watching that the splash tracker on the right field board there to see all the splash hits that take place. But Oracle Park, number 3. If I keep running through my list here, number 2, we're actually going to the complete opposite side of the country up in Boston. This is going to be Fenway Park as my second. There's a difference between old stadiums and historic stadiums. I did see this list on this stadium on Joe's list, Wrigley Field. I think the difference between Wrigley Field and Fenway, Wrigley feels like an old stadium. Boston with Fenway Park feels like an historic stadium. There's something about the aura of Fenway Park, the green monster, the area right around Boston, really cool spot. Boston's a very walkable city. I've walked the whole city. I've traveled there all the time for work. I loved it. And then number 1 on my list, in my opinion, the favorite. Yeah.
I have thoughts. I'll let you go, though.
I know, sure. Yep, and we'll come right back to that in a moment here. But number 1, I'm going PNC Park in Pittsburgh. If you want to sit behind home plate and not spend $50, PNC is the park for you. It, in my opinion, the most beautiful scenic stadium. There's nothing like sitting there during the sunset, watching the sun reflect off of the bridge. You could walk the bridge too. The bridge itself was closed for a couple of the games I went on. You could walk over that bridge. I actually stayed at the Hotel Renaissance, which is the arch-looking hotel on the other side of the bridge. Really awesome ballpark. Again, I just love the scenery there. The only thing that hurts with PNC is that the team itself hasn't been that good, so it doesn't have the same electricity as some of these other ballparks. But I'm not going to discount the stadium because of that. The stadium itself and the surrounding area and the scenery of that stadium puts it as number 1 on my list.
I just don't understand. I just don't understand why getting a view of one of America's shittiest cities is a positive. Pittsburgh sucks. And I've been to Pittsburgh, and I've been to PNC Park for a Met game, mind you.
We're talking about the park. We're not talking about the city.
Well, all people talk about for PNC Park is the view. It's the view of a shitty city. Again, I've been to Pittsburgh a lot. Pittsburgh sucks. It does. The stadium is overrated.
No.
I mean, again, I was there for a Met game. I was there for a Met game, and they had half of the concession stands closed. You couldn't get.
Yeah, I mean, nobody goes because the team's bad, but that doesn't mean the park.
The Mets weren't. You figure Mets like it's gonna game that people are gonna be at. It was a Sunday night baseball game. It's completely overrated. The Pimente's Brothers sandwich is overrated. If you want a good fries on a sandwich, go to get some fat sandwiches from the Rutgers. Again,
they do anymore.
All this credit, one, for a view of a shitty city. But it's not like you didn't make the city. So why do you get credit for seeing it? The stadium is so overrated, it is not even funny.
Stadium is awesome, and I highly disagree with Camden Yards. I know we're going to get to yours in a moment. Camden Yards is not even in my top 6.
Yeah, wait a second. You're saying that Pittsburgh's a shitty city. You got Baltimore's put Tom's up.
And Baltimore is the worst city.
The worst city in America.
I'll tell you what. There's been parts of Baltimore.
When you talk about Camden Yards, you don't talk about the amazing vistas of Baltimore. You talk about a lot of other things about Camden Yards.
You talk about the warehouse that's filled with asbestos.
Baltimore looks
It's
like
not cool,
Syria after it was bombed. It's the buildings are destroyed. Pittsburgh itself is. I
Rich, put
loved it.
Tom's
It's
up
a
there.
scenic.
All right, Tom, what we got here? Top of the order.
Your
Top of
number
the
2
order.
isn't even around anymore.
We're talking about stadiums. The prompt was stadiums we've been to. So
The
I
current,
don't-
but it's not current. It's a parking garage.
Joe, that wasn't the prompt. So I'd appreciate.
It should have been current stadium.
Well, then
Rich,
you,
am I
could, you
wrong?
could talk to Rich. Rich said stadiums you've been to. So you know what? I don't want to.
Stadiums you've been to in your lifetime. So yes, this counts.
All right.
Okay, so at number 3, again, just I partially almost want to do this to piss off Joe more. I do have Citizens Bank Park. I think it's a real nice stadium. I will say, admittedly, as I was trying to think of all the stadiums I've been to, I have not been to as many stadiums as probably the rest of the guys, at least Corey and Rich on this on the show. Although I've been to PNC and I don't like it. Citizens Bank Park has decent amenities. It's very easy to get to, which I think is a quality. With the parking situation there, and then all of the other things kind of around the Xfinity Live and everything. And it's a nice touch around those stadiums. Although I hate all the teams that play there. Also, then just a extension shout out. The Phillies stadium for spring training down in Clearwater is the best spring training stadium. I almost want to put that at number 3 because it really is. It's great. For number 2, I do have the old Yankee Stadium. And listen, the old Yankee Stadium had a lot of problems. It was very tight, but it's a stadium that has just so much nostalgia with it. And I think the biggest thing, and I do really like the new stadium, and I do like Citi Field, been to Citi Field, and it is a very nice ballpark. The thing that the newer stadiums don't have that the old Yankee Stadium have is it was so intimidating because that upper deck felt like it was just like encroaching over the field. I think that is a lot what the new stadium lacks. Is just that kind of intensity that it had, the shaking of the stadium. It was electric. So I do have the old Yankee Stadium with its flaws there. Number 1, I do have Camden Yards. It is one of the, if we're talking about important stadiums, right? We talk about Fenway and Wrigley and Dodger Stadium, but Camden Yards is an extremely important stadium. It's what ushered in the new era of the more retro ballparks. That getting away from the cookie cutter, the multi-use stadiums, the Oakland Coliseums of the world. It is also pretty easy to get to. It is right off the highway, so that is nice.
I agree with
that. I think it's a great stadium. It's almost more just like what it meant, what it brought in to baseball, the influence it had over probably a lot of the stadium, the influence you could see in like a Citizens Bank Park, in a PNC, in an Oracle. They all really do kind of come from that idea of what Camden Yards did. And I think it's important for that reason. And that's why it's number 1 for me.
I will touch on Camden shortly because Camden's on my list as well. But I want to ask our audience, out of the 3 stadiums that Tom chose, could you rank the 3 by the safest you feel walking around the surrounding area of either Baltimore, the Bronx, or Philadelphia? Just want to know.
I'm going to say actually. I'm actually going to go.
To be fair,
it should be 1.
The Citizens Bank Park isn't in Philly. You're in a giant parking lot, so that's out. The area where Camden Yards is and where M&T Bank Stadium is in Baltimore is fine. It's not a scary area. I've been to many games in that area. The Bronx definitely has its character. But listen, it is what it is.
I will say that the immediate area of Camden Yards, I agree, is good. Don't get me wrong. When you drive, you go about 15, 20 minutes down the road. I mean, you have stretches of blocks in Baltimore where it's just rubble. It looks like it literally.
We're not rating the cities here.
Oh no, I know, I agree. I just want to say Pittsburgh itself, though, the city isn't bad. It's not a bad city.
It sucks. It's a boring, shitty city.
We'll see. I will say though, with your other 2,
I spent more time in Pittsburgh than anyone on this podcast. I'll just state that, and it stinks.
All right. Well, we'll see. But I do like your pick of old Yankee Stadium over new Yankee Stadium. Something about old Yankee Stadium. It's the aura of the history that surrounded it. Same thing that I said before with Fenway on my list. You have more of that historic element to it. Yankee Stadium, I don't want to say it's like a carbon cop. I mean, it kind of is.
It's a
But
museum.
Exactly. It lacks that
stadium.
historic feel.
It's not
Correct.
a field.
I wish they could have. It would have been impossible probably to completely retrofit the old stadium with all the amenities of the new stadium, the open concourses of the different kind of restaurants and shops in the new stadium is great. And you see that in a lot of newer stadiums. The old stadium, for those of you who haven't been there, or obviously none of us have been there a long time because it doesn't exist anymore, but getting around that concourse, like if you were in line for like a hot dog, you were like backed up against the wall. It was tough. Like it really was not a pleasant experience getting around
I didn't
there,
I didn't like that it was closed off too, Tom. Like that's the difference between now and the old stadium. Like now, if you're going,
I love that the new stadium,
and you can turn around and still watch the game on the field. You could not do that in the old.
Not
ballpark.
even that, but the other way. Like when you were on the it's number 2 on my list because of the history of it. I would love to. I've been actually to Fenway, not for a baseball game. I was in Boston, and I was able to go to the stadium, but not really even do a tour of it. Actually, same thing with Wrigley. I've been to both of those stadiums, not during baseball, and I've seen them. I would love to go during the games.
You gotta go during the baseball.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to.
We'll get to mine now. So the 3, and I got 2 of the old ones on there. No, at number 3, I got Wrigley Field. I was there prior to the renovation. So what I felt was an old school field. That was the first. I had gotten there before I went to Fenway, so this was my first experience in an old ballpark. The city and the surrounding area kind of freeze during a Wrigley game. All the bars are packed, and the Cubs fans are just a great atmosphere in there. So for me, it was a really different experience. You know, being out in the outfield, you're on bleachers. I mean, new ballparks do not have bleachers in that sense for the most part, but like you're on straight up metal bleachers in Wrigley, and there's something of a charm to that. Like I just love it. I was able to walk down to either baselines back when the bullpens were out on the baselines, and it was a fantastic setting to watch a ball game, and even more so during the day, because that's when most Wrigley games are, during the day, and I love that. Number 2, I know people are going to hold me a homer. Listen, Citi Field's gorgeous. It's the best ballpark in the tri-state area, bar none. We were just talking about field of view from the concourse. Citi Field has the widest field of view from the concourse of any stadium in the country. You can see the field almost at, I think it's like 85% around the concourse. It's fantastic. Listen, when it first opened, I want to put it on there. They didn't do the walls right. There was a little bit of an odd feel to it. It has improved so much since. The rotunda, even though it's borrowed from Ebbets Field, is to me, it's iconic. It's
iconic for a different franchise, though. I hate that they did that. I really
agree with you there, Tom.
Like Ebbets Field, it's not even like a franchise that died and doesn't exist anymore. Like they moved 2,000 miles away. Like the fact that they did that is, I just think so. It's just
when I first saw it, I
honoring Ebbets Field. That's not. It wasn't. They never. It's not like they ever played there. It's not even like, oh, we're honoring the Polo Grounds because we played some games there. Like you're honoring a field you have no connection to other than it's in the city, not even in the same borough. I
think the way it's built and the way you enter the stadium and the rotunda itself, even though, again, you're right, it does honor a different team way back when, but it is a fantastic entranceway into the ballpark. I think it's the best place in the tri-state area to go watch a baseball game. It's a pain in the ass to get to, as is Yankee Stadium, in my opinion. Those are the biggest 2 drawbacks to them. And then my number 1, which if you have to go to a game during a game day, you can't just take a tour of it. You have to go during a game day because the city stops. And when you enter Fenway, if you've never been to Fenway, you don't enter the stadium. You don't scan your ticket to enter the stadium. You scan your ticket to enter the street surrounding the stadium. So and then you're free to go in and out of It's every game is like a block party. It's the most unbelievable atmosphere. I've been to 2 games there, one against the Cardinals, one against the Phillies. The atmosphere is second to none. There is nothing like a Fenway baseball game that I have ever experienced. I understand why people love it. That is my number one. And I don't, honestly, it's not even close. That is my favorite ballpark.
I'd love to go. And John, I don't hate Citi Field. I hate that it's honoring a stadium for a different franchise. I think that's pretty embarrassing. I have been to the Trop. I do actually rank the Trop below PNC. So PNC is not last on my list. I've been to a game of the Trop, and that place does truly blow.
Rich.
I'll wrap this up quickly and echo Joe's sentiments on my number one as well. I'm going with Fenway Park, and I'm not going based off of surrounding area. I'm going within the vicinity of a ballpark, baseball atmosphere. So even though I would love to talk about the area right outside of Boston and the bars and that atmosphere, I'm just going to just talk about the ballpark. I love the traditional look. I love this old school vibe. If you are a young baseball fan that only know about the contemporary ballparks that really Camden Yards at my number 2 position kind of kicked off that renaissance of new ballparks, Fenway, Wrigley Field are the 2 best ballparks to probably visit. And I can't speak on Wrigley really. I mean, I can only speak on its lineage, but Fenway I've been to, and Fenway's amazing. I would go Fenway 1. I got Baltimore, Camden Yards at 2. And number 3, I got Dodger Stadium. I know, Corey, you had some issues with Dodger Stadium during your road trip. But based on like my experience there, I really did like the view. The views were stunning. My experience must have been different by yours. I know you had some issues though.
The only thing, here's the thing with Dodger Stadium. I agree that the views were stunning, and the stadium itself was cool. It's just so unorganized. I had no idea where I was going. Never in my life have I walked out into a row of seats and literally was completely confused as to where I was. You're walking down. It says 14 here. It says 16 here. You think 15 would be the middle seat? No, 15 is way down. You got to go down that way. Same thing before with the walkways. We were trying to get to the highest level. We took an escalator up just to walk around a bend and take the escalator back down. You had to walk over here to go up the staircase. It is a weirdly organized ballpark. But once you do get to your seat, that's why they say, oh, LA fans take till about the 5th inning to get to their seats, because they can't find their seats. But once you're at your seat, it's a very nice stadium. I'll give you that.
Corey, how was the Dodger dog? Did you go Dodger dog?
I did not get the Dodger dog. I know I upset you.
How do you not get the Dodger dog?
Top off so much. He was committed to not having a Dodger dog.
They had actually Dodger Stadium. I thought they had a lot of good food options there too. I ended up going with they had like some sort of wing and tot deal going on there, and it was really good, like buffalo wings. So I was all for that.
I don't like eat wings at a baseball game.
No, it was boneless. I know, so not real wings, but the boneless does make it more convenient.
Love
so you're not
getting messy.
When you're in the middle of a ballpark, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
We will move on from top of the order there. That was awesome, guys. If you actually follow us on Instagram, which is, conveniently enough, our next plug here, give us a follow at Empire State of Baseball, and you can check out some of our photos over time at some of the stadiums that we listed here today. Also, even on our story, we have Joe's shot of Citi Field, and I had a shot of the new Yankee Stadium just to give them some love. We also had a poll today about which stadium out of the New York stadiums, including the old fields, were the best. And I think I saw last Citi Field was in the lead there in our vote. So I'll check that out and verify. But Citi Field did have the lead. So very interesting stuff. But you can only know about that if you follow us on Instagram at Empire State of Baseball, and obviously on Twitter at ESB Podcast. You can follow our host at G Gory, that's Corey, at JR Pugs, that's Joe, at 2Spill, or T Wospil as he likes to go by. That is Tom, and you can follow me at Rich J Rivera as well for everything on the latest of the show.
Old Yankee Stadium is now in the lead.
Tom went and voted.
I did. Who voted for Shea?
Somebody voted for Shea.
Wrigley Field is a lot better than Shea.
Shay's a hole, but it was our hole.
Tom, what were those percentages? What's the lead? What's the leaderboard looking like?
So it was 45% Old Yankee Stadium, 44%. 44% Citi Field, 11% Shea Stadium. No love for the new Yankee Stadium.
And honestly, I think that's fair. If any two of the four are going to be close, it should be Old Yankee Stadium and Citi Field. The other two,
I agree. I could agree.
I really don't think new City, like Citi Field and New Yankee Stadium, are that different. Like they offer the same stuff. They're nice, they're new. I really
Again,
don't.
Yankee Stadium, New Yankee Stadium is a museum. City Field's a ballpark.
Because there's
that's the difference for me.
There's a tradition and history of winners to honor. So
there's no tradition history of winning in that stadium, though. You can't say that. It's a museum. It is.
Hey,
Anyway.
make sure to hang out with us for another 15 minutes. That's what this show is looking like. Play to be named later is our next segment here. Oh, we are not done yet. Of course, we got to have some fun here. Our current game standings have been looking good. We have a 4-way tie for first place. Corey has yet to jump into the party, but maybe tonight. So, Joe, who is your player to be named later for the Mets?
Okay, so this player played for the New York Mets from 2000 to 2004. He was a super utility player, played every position except catcher for at least 46 games in his MLB career. He is the current bench coach of a National League team and was a coach, an assistant coach for an American League team for 10 years that was managed by his former New York Met teammate.
Who is Joe McEwing?
Yeah, Corey got it.
Yes, I'm on the board. I'm on the board.
That was too easy.
You seen this question? Oh my, Joe McEwing. That's a name right there.
I really wanted to just yell Benny Agbayani because I think he has the best name in baseball history.
I love Benny Agbayani. The reason I know that too, I got to give a shout out to Baseball Mogul because I would literally put McEwing at any position at any given time. But McEwing, yeah, great utility player. Definition of a quality bench piece.
You were ragging on me for the Homer Bush thing last week, and yet everybody's giving you flack for this rookie question.
I guess it was easier than we thought. I mean,
and honestly, I gave before because in my head I'm like, I think this Joe McEwing, and then Corey jumped right in. But
wait, I need to get the point.
Shouldn't have given the last two hints right away.
Corey, you go get yours. I got mine last week. You get your points where you can get them, man.
That's it.
All right. Well, Thomas, I know you have the next one. Hopefully, this is a little bit more tougher.
We'll see. So, we are talking about a former Yankee. It is a pitcher that played in the 90s and 2000s with 2 different stints with the Yankees, and he was the winning pitcher of Game 5 of the 2001 World Series, known for the game that Scott Brosius had the game-tying home run in the 9th, and Soriano walked it off in the 12th, the day after Jeter's walk-off.
Is it El Duque? It
is not El Duque.
All right, so that game was late.
Silo.
I'm going to go Ramiro Mendoza.
It is not Ramiro Mendoza.
My apologies, Mom, for the F-bomb.
2001.
Why can't I? Let's go with Jeff Nelson.
It's not Jeff Nelson.
Yeah, I know, Tom, you wouldn't make this an easy one, so it's got to be somebody obscure, right?
It's got to be a reliever, right?
He's he mostly a starter in his career. He pitched 7 years with the Yankees. This is not a guy in total. He pitched 7 years with the Yankees. I would say he is also probably one of the most unfortunate players in Yankees history.
Now, I will say, if none of us can come up with this, if no one can come up with this, the chat, if they get it right, they'll get the point.
Correct. And if nobody gets it, Tom gets the point.
I will.
What?
I think again, I'm giving someone who is he's pitched for the Yankees for 7 years. He's not an absolute nobody. But very unfortunate Yankee. He pitched for the Yankees from 92 to 95, so got to that wild card game. Not there in the late 90s, rejoined in 2001. So literally was he was bookend by he's a sandwich of championships that he was the bread and got to take part in none of them. Although
David Wells?
Not David Wells. David Wells was on those mid-90s teams.
Mike Stanton?
I know he had 2 stints.
No, he actually did play in the 1998 World Series just for the team the Yankees beat.
It's a tough one.
He appeared in the 1998 World Series against the Yankees.
Tough one.
So he's a Padre.
He was a Padre. He pitched. This guy had a 13-year career, 6 years with the Padres, 7 the Yankees.
Oh, 13-year career.
Yeah, this is a guy.
This is a good pitcher.
I mean, he's a pitcher. He's a serviceable pitcher. He had years where he was a good pitcher.
Okay, I didn't even know. I know he was on both teams, but I don't know if I got Jesse Orozco.
Not Jesse Orozco. Jesse Orozco was on every. Jesse Orozco was an 86 Mets, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he was on. He
pitched for like 25 years. What a yeah.
I'm honestly stumped.
I don't think this is it, but I'm going to throw it out there. Dave Weathers.
It is not David Weathers. No. I guess I'll give one more hint, but I feel like I already earned the point. His last name is the same name as one of the most famous directors in cinema history.
Oh God!
What the?
Famous
director in cinema history? No, I can't think of a Spielberg. I can't think of a Tarantino.
I'm out on this one.
Are we throwing the towel, boys?
I'm throwing in the towel too, actually.
Yeah.
Corey, and I don't think anybody in the chat. I got a Dwight Gooden.
Got it. No, it's not Dwight Gooden. We were looking for Sterling Hitchcock.
I would have never got it.
Oh my God!
I come up with Joe McHugh, and he comes up with Sterling Hitchcock.
Sterling Hitchcock pitched 7 years for the Yankees.
I give Tom credit.
I'm sorry you weren't watching as much in the late.
Wow.
I'm sorry you didn't watch enough, but he appeared in over 100 games as the Yankees as a pitcher.
Well,
he started 53 of them.
Corey's rule
over 400. I mean, I did not
the leader.
I did not give who was Joe's BS guy the first time we did this? What was it?
Lenny Harris.
Lenny Harris. Sterling Hitchcock is
Lenny
not
Harris.
Lenny
Harris.
Hitchcock he is a BS guy. I didn't even get it.
I'm just saying he is a
BS
guy.
MLB record, a little different.
Wow.
Sterling Hitchcock was the NLCS MVP in 1998.
No, that's a good answer.
All right. So Tom gets the point. Tom's ahead of everybody.
I don't think that's as. I know it's a little older, but I don't think he is nearly as like a complete footnote. He did, impact those teams.
All righty.
Well,
point to Corey, point to Tom. Let's wrap this thing up. And I normally I would just throw the thank you and take care ticker on the bottom and call it a show because we like to talk about professional baseball teams, but I guess we have to talk about these guys. The state of baseball, the Oakland Athletics, because Joe and crew wanted to stir the pot over the weekend and asked this question: A's move to Vegas, good or bad for baseball? And 70% of our followers voted good for baseball. But that was only following a long string of tweets and comments fired to Empire State of Baseball's way on Saturday, where Joe went on, and this is Joe, I believe. Reality is this was long overdue, and Oakland, unfortunately, is going to suffer. But even when the team is good, and it has been recently, the attendance is poor at best. The ballpark is terrible. This is the right move for the team and baseball. And every single one of the 13 Oakland A's fans went after us on Twitter. So, Joe, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah. Listen.
Let's talk Oakland A's.
I need to say something to the A's fans. This is unfortunate. I feel for you. No city should ever lose its MLB team. But the reality of the situation is this has not only held this franchise back, as well as the owner. I will not pass and not give the owner criticism. This has held the city back. This has held the team back. This has held MLB as an organization back. And it has held the growth of the game of baseball back. Okay? The last time Oakland ranked higher than 24th in attendance was 2005. This includes 5 seasons of 90-win-plus teams. This includes 6 postseason bursts by Oakland in that time frame. Oakland won 97 games 2 years in a row and were 28th in attendance in both years. Unfortunately, the stadium has become the biggest eyesore in Major League Baseball. It is time to move. I understand Oakland fans are upset. The few of you that there are that are diehards, you are passionate. I understand that. I feel for you. But at the end of the day, we have to admit that this is not working in Oakland. And the fact of the matter is, teams now have to draw 2.5 to 3 million fans in good seasons to be successful. And don't think Tampa Bay and Miami are not in the same boat as you. They are. Miami gets away with it because Miami just built a new building. They're stuck. Tampa's next. And that team wins every single year. This is no longer sustainable. Okay? We know the owner's bad. We understand that. Do I know if Vegas is going to work? Do I know if Vegas is going to draw 2.5 million fans a year? I don't. But I know Oakland isn't. All right. Oakland hasn't had more than 2.05 million in their stadium since 05. That I know for a fact. And that's a long, long time. It's almost 2 decades. It's time. I'm sorry Oakland fans are upset with me. Why they're upset with me is no idea. Go riot down on Coliseum Drive.
Plenty of reasons to be upset with you, Joe.
Fisher's head. Don't come after me. I'm stating the obvious. And 70% of fans who voted in the poll agree, and the majority of baseball agrees.
So I do want to kind of have a counter to this. I don't think it's good that the Oakland A's are moving to Vegas. One, the owner has not invested in this team, and he does not deserve to bring his team to what is now the crown jewel of the place where all American sports teams are looking to go in Vegas. You know, for so long, Vegas was off the table until the Golden Knights had the expansion team. The Raiders moved there. MLB is moving towards expansion, and the biggest expansion fee they're going to get is for whatever ownership group wants to build a team in Oakland. That owner who does not invest in his team and the group does not deserve, one, they don't deserve to go to Vegas to reap those benefits. And it actually hurts the league because they're not going to get that kind of an expansion fee. The A's should move out of Oakland, but they should not be allowed to move to Vegas. And it's also, I don't think it's a done deal at this point. So the owner can do as he wants. MLB can tell him that he can't move. They can block him. I believe the owners can vote to block him from allowing that, again, because it's going to take money out of all of their pockets. Granted, they are very deep pockets, all the other owners, but they would be able to make so much more if they were able to sell that off. And the MLB expands with 2 teams, and they've talked a lot about bringing a team back to Montreal, putting a team possibly in Nashville. That is what happens. Oakland, you can go somewhere else, but you should not be allowed to just not try as a ownership side of things, not try for this long and then get to go to what is called basically the promised land for major sports right now. Everyone wants to go to Vegas. They shouldn't be allowed to do it.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, to add to your point, Tom, you know what would have been a good city for them just to keep the whole West Coast vibe and with that division? What about Portland?
Yeah. That'd be fine. And again, John, I know I see what you're saying, that the owners would make a lot more money if they were to sell that franchise, and the franchise fees would go to the other owners.
I don't think the market is going to dictate the fee. They're going to expand 2 teams at the same time. The fee is going to be the same for both franchises.
I don't think it would be. I think it's Vegas. Everyone wants to go
at the same time. Yeah, it's not going to matter. I mean, I think Seattle's fee to expand in the NHL was even more than Vegas's fee, just because it was a couple of years later. They're going to sell it for the same price. People are going to run to pay it. I think actually Nashville is a bigger draw overall because we've seen the way the hockey team has become successful in Nashville. But I don't. At the end of the day, the MLB owners are going to look out for one of their own instead of the people that are not yet in their circle. So to me, nobody's ever going to deny this move. San Francisco's going to sign off on it. They can't wait to get Oakland out of there and own that market for themselves. There's no other teams.
That's the other thing, though. I've been trying to do some dives into this, and the other California and West Coast teams aren't going to like this because then San Francisco is going to own the Bay Area instead of taking it. Granted, I'm sure they're taking 80% of the money from it anyway, but you're just giving all that money to the Giants. The Dodgers, the Padres, they're not gonna, Rockies, probably even the Mariners aren't gonna be in favor of a move like that.
The distance is so far that it San Francisco's revenue, it doesn't affect the Dodgers. They all own their own markets. The only ones, Dodgers and Angels, the only ones competing against each other for the most part. The Giants are the third highest attendance team in the league over the last decade. Like they don't care. It's all gravy to them. At the end of the day, this is going to happen. I think they're done with Oakland. I think it's time to go. Listen, some cities are not baseball towns. I'm not talking politics. I'm not talking demographics. I'm not talking anything like that. There are cities in this country that are not baseball towns. Period. End of story. All right. Tampa's not a baseball town. Miami, Florida is not a baseball town. That's a basketball town. New York is a baseball town. Boston's a baseball town. Chicago's a baseball town. St. Louis is a baseball town. These are towns that eat, breathe, and Cincinnati's another one that live and die by baseball. Oakland, California is not one of them. You know, even Dallas, Texas, that's not a baseball town. That's a football town.
If anything, they were known for the Raiders.
They were. The one team that should have stayed was the Oakland Raiders. They were Oakland. You know, San Francisco is San Francisco is a football town, but it's a baseball town almost as much as it is a football town. So
the Niners don't play in San Francisco, so it makes it easy.
They don't play right, but
they're anywhere near San Francisco.
This is the reality of the situation, and sometimes, as a city and as a fan base, you guys have to look at yourself in the mirror and understand that there are not enough people here supporting this team, even when they are good. When you win 97 games and you don't draw 2.5 million people, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't care what the stadium looks like.
Letting them move there, though, is so rewarding bad behavior. Like the way that they've run that team and just have cut that payroll and they are not trying to win from a front office standpoint. They should not be allowed to just go to Vegas and make all this money. And probably not spend it.
Ori, any closing thoughts for our friends over that are running some Oakland A's podcasts on the West Coast?
The only thing I gotta say, it's unfortunate for the city. I still think it's unfortunate for baseball, but on the flip side, it's gonna be good if they actually spend the money, get the attendance rates up. I'm tired. This is what I hate most about baseball. I'm tired of teams like the Mets now. I can't believe I'm saying it, but the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, all of these teams spending 200, 300 million on payroll and teams barely spending 50 million on payroll. I'm tired of it. If this move is going to help them spend and increase the competitiveness a little more, I'm for it. It's just unfortunate it had to go down this way.
I could echo the sentiments of all three of you. You guys make fantastic points. The one point that was not mentioned that I will mention here, as a co-host and producer of this podcast, I want to message clear out to any other podcast that thinks we are not allowed to talk about any other team, any other franchise. We're a Major League Baseball podcast, unofficial, a Major League Baseball podcast. And yes, we definitely cater to our demographic of New York. But even in our fantasy hot corner, which not, of course, he went to Mets guys, but we talked about a Pittsburgh.
Bad example of the fantasy hot
corner. Tom.
Let's use a different segment.
We've talked about other teams. We've talked about other players. There is news to cover, especially in a major market in New York. We're going to cover it. But when there are baseball topics that we will cover, it will always be done on this show. And if anybody's out there that wants to challenge us, bring it on. Because Empire State of Baseball will lead the charge.
I love
that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Any final thank yous?
I thought Joe. I'm just gonna stop.
I just want to thank you, Rich, for the passion. I love the passion, love the energy. While we're doing thank yous, though, I do got to give a thank you to Joe Douglas. Thank you for finally getting this done. Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. This is Empire State, and Aaron Rodgers is coming to the Empire State. Let's go, New York Jets, baby.
I know we've been hurting Hernandez all podcasts, especially Tom. But I want to thank John because ever since he decided to break our truce in our group chat, the Rangers are 0-2.
So. I would like to pile on there, and I'd like to thank Mr. Jack Hughes, number 86 here, for helping get 2 wins in the world's most dumpy arena. MSG is a dump. MSG blows. It is a crappy arena. It is an arena full of losing teams and losing franchises, and it stinks.
Tom's in the mood today.
It's not Empire State of Hockey. It's just all right, whatever. But John, just one final point. I was just making the point that you did touch on a Pittsburgh Pirate. we will talk about other teams on this show. Like that's no podcast. No one's going to stop us from talking about it. These are the 4 best people that can talk about this sport, and we're going to do it at our best ability with all the research that we possibly can. If you don't like it, you can challenge us on Twitter at ESP Podcast. Make sure to check out our show next Monday. We'll be back on Monday at 8 p.m. here on Twitch. Give us a follow all around on our socials. We'll see you at 8 o'clock Monday next week. Take care.